U.S. President Donald Trump repeating his rhetoric over Canada becoming the 51st state.
Canada could take over the U.S.
President Trump is trying to break us so that America can own us. That will never, ever happen.
We haven't really had a lot of luck with Canada. I think Canada could be one where they'll just pay tariffs.
The global trade game has shifted, and it's happening faster than anyone expected. In less than a year, Canada has moved from a quiet player to a serious heavyweight, and the impact is showing up in boardrooms across America. Major companies like Ford, GM and Walmart are suddenly on the back foot, facing soaring costs and supply chain chaos. Meanwhile, Canada is pulling in billions in new investments, securing critical minerals and locking down the future of electric vehicles. High-tech jobs are flowing north. For the first time in recent history, Ottawa, not Washington, is calling the shots on what powers tomorrow's economy. So what triggered this massive power shift? And how long before the US pushes back? Because if this keeps up, the next global economic pivot might not start in DC, it might already be happening in Canada. While global attention stayed locked on tariff battles and tech rivalries, Canada was quietly reshaping its future beneath the radar. In the mining corridors of Quebec and the snow-covered hills of Yukon, something more than resource extraction was underway. A long-term strategy had taken root, and by 2025 it was beginning to deliver. Canada wasn't only digging minerals out of the ground, it was transforming raw elements into leverage. Lithium, cobalt, nickel and rare earths are the foundation of nearly every electric vehicle, smartphone and modern defence system. And Canada holds more than enough to matter. Even after production dipped slightly in 2023 due to cutbacks at Glencore's Raglan and Sudbury mines, Canada still remained one of the world's top nickel producers. Ontario led the charge, and by the end of 2024, the federal government had committed $10 million to unlock rare earth development in northern Quebec and Labrador. That funding was spent on roads, ports and infrastructure, the early, often overlooked groundwork that builds trade routes. The real shift came from policy. Under the US Inflation Reduction Act, electric vehicle manufacturers must source critical minerals from trade allies to qualify for federal tax breaks. Canada, already rich in these materials, became vital to keeping that supply chain alive. The industry could no longer function without its northern neighbour. That was part of a larger strategy. While Washington pushed tariffs, Ottawa was positioning itself where it couldn't be ignored. By the time Washington turned its attention to electric vehicles, Canada had already laid its foundation. In 2023, both the federal and Ontario governments pledged a combined $15 billion in support of a massive battery plant being built in Windsor by Stellantis and LG. It was a signal that Canada intended to become a permanent force in the electric vehicle landscape. Volkswagen followed soon after, choosing St. Thomas as the home for its North American gigafactory. Ottawa responded with $13 billion. In tax incentives and a $700 million grant. Meanwhile, Quebec continued laying the bricks for its own battery ecosystem. It issued a $150 million loan to Ultium Cam, a joint venture between General Motors and POSCO Future M, to build a cathode production plant. Another $150 million was approved for Volta Canada, supporting its copper foil factory in Granby. These moves were part of a national plan to take control of every link in the electric vehicle chain, from raw materials to finished components, with the US offering credits to EVs assembled in North America, and with Canada's production now eligible under those terms, the two systems began to lock together. Canada's advantage came from momentum. Its policy, funding and infrastructure worked in harmony. While American debates dragged through Congress, Ottawa moved forward, one deal, one factory, one partnership at a time. As American retailers and manufacturers tried to shield themselves from rising tariffs, Canada quickly shifted from supplier to lifeline. In May 2025, Costco's CEO Ron Vacris announced that the company had started moving production of its private label products closer to where they're sold. Canada was a key part of that move. The goal was simple: reduce costs and bypass tariff hurdles. Behind the scenes, more companies were doing the same. The US Department of Defense made a notable move in August 2024, investing $20 million under the Defense Production Act to build a cobalt refinery in Ontario. The Canadian government matched that with an additional $3.66 million, and construction was underway before the year's end. Cobalt isn't a minor detail. It's essential for military technology and EV batteries, and China's dominance in the market has long been a concern. Partnering with Canada provided the US with more security and a closer, more reliable supply, and that's only part of the picture. As of January 2025, Canada supplied 71% of the US potash, 50% of refined zinc, and 23% 2% of its nickel. While American lawmakers stayed gridlocked, Canada took its trade playbook global. The United States-Mexico-Canada agreement remained central, but it was no longer the whole story. Since 2022, Ottawa had expanded a series of powerful trade deals that reached far beyond North America. Canada locked itself into the CPTPP. It finalised trade agreements with the European Union, the UK, South Korea and a broad range of ASEAN countries. These moves weren't about symbolism. They gave Canadian exporters preferred access to markets covering 66% of global GDP. According to Global Affairs Canada, over 1.5 billion consumers were now within reach under Canadian trade protections. The pivot accelerated in November 2022 when Canada launched its Indo-Pacific strategy, a $2.3 billion effort aimed at strengthening diplomatic, digital and logistics ties across the region. The plan didn't rely on high-level speeches, it was focused on execution, including real infrastructure deals with India, Vietnam, Indonesia and South Korea. In March 2025, the impact became visible. Canada's exports to markets beyond the US surged nearly 25% in a single month. Trade diversification had become policy in action, backed by rising demand and steady momentum. While global companies are moving north across the world, large companies are looking for more than access to markets. They want stability. And with rising tensions between Washington and Beijing, fewer firms are willing to gamble on unpredictable trade environments. Canada offers something different. Foreign direct investment into Canada reached $50.3 billion in 2023, a 9% increase from the previous year. That pushed Canada into sixth place globally. These investments weren't scattered, they were targeted toward critical infrastructure. Smart logistics networks, inland ports, digital systems and advanced transportation corridors. One of the clearest examples is Centerport in Winnipeg. It has become North America's largest tri-modal inland port, linking rail, road and air transport through a single network. Companies using this route can move goods from Asia through Vancouver and into the US Midwest faster and cheaper than through traditional ports. In May 2025, Nutrien announced a new terminal in the Pacific Northwest to support potash exports to Asia. The demand was real, backed by long-term contracts and stable trade frameworks. Over the past 2 years, Canada has been playing a different kind of game. While Washington leaned into political drama and loud declarations, Ottawa focused on outcomes. No global clashes, no erratic policies. Instead, a clear economic roadmap was put in place, one built around trade corridors, clean energy, digital infrastructure and reduced bureaucracy. The payoff is already visible. In the first quarter of 2025, Canada's GDP grew at an annualized rate of 2.2%, driven by exports and a surge of American companies sourcing from north of the border. Reuters reported on May 30th that Canada posted one of the strongest growth rates in the G7. Foreign direct investment followed. By the end of 2024, Canada had received $1.5 trillion in total FDI, up 5.5% year over year. That money was aimed squarely at strategic sectors, AI labs, energy grids, ports, and smart logistics. These weren't speculative plays. They were long-term bets placed by investors, confident the ground wouldn't shift beneath them. The labour market stayed strong too. By December 2024, Canada added 413,000 new jobs, bringing the unemployment rate down to 6.7%. Those gains came from the same industries Canada had been nurturing all along: clean tech, supply chain management and advanced manufacturing. No grandstanding, no posturing, just focused, consistent execution. This power shift is still unfolding and the next chapter could change everything. Where do you think the US goes from here? Let us know in the comments. We're watching this one closely.